Welcome to the Fantasy Aceball podcast. This is your host, Tim Kanak. You can find me on X at Fantasy Aceball. And you can find this on video if you want to search on video and watch our beautiful faces. You can find it on my YouTube at the Tim Kanak. And if you're watching, you already know who's on the show. If you're listening, I'm making you wait in anticipation and make you wish that you were watching rather than just listening. But we have with us for prospects number 25 through number 1, the famous Eric Cross, who you can find on X at Eric Cross MLB. Everyone knows that you can find him also on the Tool Shed Pod and all the other stuff that you do. Eric, you do too much stuff. I don't even know how to, like, we'd be doing like a 10-minute introduction if I have to give your whole resume here. Rotoballer, like you're everywhere, man. What's going on? How you doing?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
Quite excellent. Having a good time. My kids are all ready. I messaged you before that I was like getting my kids ready for bed, and that is like the most hectic part of my night. Every night is like bathing 4 children, and they all want to like take a bath at the same time or like fight over who takes a bath first, and it's just like every time our bathroom just gets completely soaked. I like at this point might as well, I don't know, turn it into like a water park because it's just it's a nightmare of water all over the place and just kids throwing stuff and crying and toys everywhere and whatever.
I'd like to tell you it gets better, but it doesn't because I only have 2 kids myself, but they are now 12 and 9. And after they take a shower, the bathroom is still, even though I'm like, all right, we get the towel, throw the bath mat down. You guys, you have the ingredients to not make a mess. And then every time I go in there afterwards, just like, did a tornado come through here? And there's water like around the corner. I'm like, how'd that even happen? It's water on the wall. It's like, are you shaking off like a dog? It just doesn't get better. I've been waiting for it to get better. I'm like, oh, they're older now. They should. No, it doesn't get better ever. I've just come to
Yeah,
that realization.
you have girls too, so it's like my wife is so much more messy in the bathroom than I am, and her hair clogs everything. So I'm just like constant, like we're just keeping Drano on deck. So yeah, with girls, like I've got 2 girls, but that are too young for hair to be clinging, clogging up drains. So I'm lucky in that part right now. So it's like, okay, pick your poison, right? The boys are
Right.
going to be all over the place, and then the girls are just going to have like products and hair clogging everything and like makeup everywhere. And so it's like
Oh,
you can't win. You lose either way.
it's hilarious because yeah. So in the main shower that we use, there's like 2 little shelves. So me and my son kind of like have our stuff on like one of the shelves. He still has like the all-in-one, kids, watermelon scented stuff, and then I have all my stuff. Then the other one is entirely her, which is overflowing. There's some stuff on the floor of the shower, and then she asked me not too long ago, can we get one of those, like, the things that you hang over the hang down from the shower head itself to like add like extra shelving. I'm like, do you need any more shelving in that shower? You already have half of it. It's and all their products smell like it looks like cake ingredients. It's like the scents is like vanilla honey and like cocoa shea butter. I'm like, are you making a cake or is that conditioner? Like all their scents smell like look like ingredients for a cake or something. It's weird.
That's funny because like I was listening to, getting off topic here. I was listening to a Gary Brecka podcast, and he said something about like, oh, only put on your skin something that you would eat. So I guess at least that means that she's using healthy products. I guess
I guess
if they're Brecka approved. So
they work for her, so whatever.
yeah, exactly. Okay, so let's roll into some of these prospects here, and we're going to start off at number 25, and I'm going to throw the thing here up on the screen for anyone watching, so you can kind of follow along with the podcasts. So one more tease on why you should be watching instead of just listening, unless you're just whatever in the car. Like, don't watch if you're in the car, please. No car accidents. But you can see here, number 25, you have Noah Schultz, who actually pitched today. And then I've got Charlie Condon here at 25. And Noah Schultz, like I talked a little bit about him on the last pod with Ross, so I'm not going to go too far into it. But obviously the dude is a giant. I actually saw John Anderson joke like I was expecting a pigeon to explode when he was pitching because he looks exactly like Randy Johnson on the mound there. But I'm looking from Schultz this year. I've got him at 29, so I'm like right behind on you. And the main thing that I'm looking for him is to like see if they extend him into more innings now that he's like a little bit older. Obviously, last year is a 20-year-old, and he was only pitching like 4 inning stints. So I want to kind of see if they build up the workload here for him. And I'd also like to see like more results play up because he only had 11.8% swinging strike rate last year. And like he has insane stuff. So it's like, what's happening here with the swinging strike rate? Like, is he just like not pitch? Like, I don't know if this is a thing, and you may have a comment on this, but I don't know if this is a thing where his breaking stuff is just not, in a place where some of these advanced hitters that he's seeing are going to swing at it at AA. So maybe that's what it is like it's just like too outside of the zone, and he's got to figure out maybe more of a better pitch mix for some of the more advanced hitters that he's facing. Just thoughts on like why that swing strike rate is lower than like, if, for instance, 30% CSW is really good, but 11.8 swing strike rate is kind of odd. Especially for a dude with excellent command here. And then Charlie Condon, I've got at 25. Really bad high A experience here with Condon. Like obviously like super toolsed up, insane year in college, like 1,009 slug, like 58 extra base hits, 37 bombs. But, that's coming from a place where he's using a metal bat. I've already referenced before on like other podcasts that his home numbers were way better than his away numbers. So there was like a little bit of concern there. And then also like college pitching. So it's like, okay. But, I'll give him a little bit of a break because he was in high A, and it's like he did just come off of a college year. And sometimes the college guys, like they're just tired when they have to play right away. So like I'll give him a little bit of a break. If he comes out really poor at the beginning of this year, I'll be a little bit more concerned, but I'm kind of willing to give him a pass for his minor league stint last year. What do you think about that?
Oh, 100%. As people can see, or if you're only listening, I have Condon in my top 25 as well. And yeah, I feel like the rough stint after the draft is being overblown a bit too much. I mean, yeah, it was bad. There's no way to slice and dice it. It was bad, but it was only, 28 games, I believe it was. So I'm not going to let that overshadow and kind of like cloud, my thought process on what was a really, really good collegiate career at the University of Georgia. And he's also, I think, he was battling a little bit of an injury as well. So I don't think he was fully healthy. Like you said, it was kind of the end of a long year for him. So yeah, did I drop him a little bit down my rankings? Like I had him, up, I think it was like in the 12, 13 range. I did drop him several spots, but as everyone can see, I stayed true into my rankings. I kept him in my top 25. I'm still a very, high believer of the bat. And the long-term power potential of Condon, good feel to hit, can run a little bit, maybe he adds you 5-10 steals a year, hits for a solid average, good OBP, plenty of power. So yeah, I'm still very high on Condon. And then Noah Schultz, my 25. I don't often have a lot of pitching prospects in my top 25 unless I'm like insanely high on them. So Noah Schultz making my top 25. He's one of 3 pitchers in my top 25 here. I am, I think he might have the highest upside of any pitching prospect in baseball. It's right there with Painter, with Job. I mean, the stuff is just so nasty, and the fact that he's already had over a 30% K rate, even given the non-stellar swing strike rate. So it's like he's got good feel. He can locate. He can get those called strikes as well. So I think that the sky's the limit for him, and it's easy to compare him to previous tall, lanky lefties that have come through this organization. I like to make the joke that since my Red Sox acquired Chris Sale years ago, just acquired Garrett Crochet, that we're just going to acquire Noah Schultz in at the year 2029 or something like that. But yeah, he's got all the stuff I look for in a future frontline guy. I do think that they take the kid gloves off a bit more this year. He's really only going 4 innings or so last year. I think they're still going to baby him a little bit. I don't think there's any need for them to push him too hard. Obviously, they're not going to be contending this year, but long term, the upside is one of the best pitchers in baseball. So it's easy to get excited for a guy like Noah Schultz.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like this is I think the most impressive part about what he's done is he keeps pitching under like a 7% walk rate at that size. When you see guys this size, you usually get like a Tyler Glasnow effect where their walk rate is like 14% or whatever. Or like Mizurowski, for instance, is like you get something like that. So like to see a big dude, big like 6'9" guy who can put up who can locate his pitches the way that he is just absolutely insane. And I had a tough time. I actually moved Quinn Matthews, who we'll talk about in a second, ahead of him, and that's more from like a proximity basis than anything. That's the majority of the reason why I moved him like as the next pitcher up. So 24, you have Carson Williams, who I have at 33. And then this is what's funny. I've got Lazaro Montes, who you have at 33. So it's like a 24 for 33 trade here. Montes actually, looked pretty good the other day. So Montes, I'm really high on. I got a little bit concerned when he first went off to high A because he did struggle a little bit. But the way that he finished at high A was really impressive. From August on, he hit 333, 459, 604 with 7 bombs and 3 steals at that high A level. So he got up there, struggled, made adjustments, and then just tore it up after that. So like if you look at his overall numbers, you might be like, 21 homers, 44 extra base hits. There's guys who did more than that, but like I think that with his frame and everything, and everyone wants to compare him to Jordan because he's got like a similar swing and stuff. But like, I honestly think that like he's probably going to have more of like and I'm talking about a Hall of Famer here, but I feel like, when you look at his projections, I feel like you're going to get more of like a Paul Goldschmidt line than anything from the outfield, where it's going to be, you're going to get some steals mixed in there. I think you can get like 8 steals, but I don't think he's going to have like the Jordan superpower, and like I think the batting average might be a little bit lower unless there's like a very big BABIP infusion, because Goldschmidt's high batting average seasons were all like 350 BABIP years. So like where Jordan is just a naturally better hitter. So I think Montes his average is going to depend more on like BABIP, kind of like Goldie's, but I think he's going to be more like a high 20 home run hitter with like, sprinkling 8 steals or whatever on top of it in the outfield. What do you think about Montes?
Yeah, no, the raw power is really impressive with Montez, and yeah, he does move well for a size. So I do agree with what you said there, that he's got to at least provide some speed. Maybe it's not more than still in the single digits, but I don't think he'll be a 0 in that department either. Not like he's not gonna be like Jordan stealing just like 1 or 2 a year. But yeah, the one concern with Montez is, despite the higher averages, so this is kind of why, like, you get to take minor league stats with a grain of salt sometimes, is that the contact skills have been questionable, right? So, with him, but even if he's more, even if he's more like 250, 260, that still could come with 30 plus home runs and be, a pretty solid middle of the order guy, driving a lot of runs, probably score a decent amount. He'll have a decent OBP. He's always walked at a pretty high clip. I mean, last year was 14.5%. Year before that was 18%. I mean, he's always gotten on base at an elite clip. So I think that'll be something that kind of sticks moving forward. You just got to, be concerned about, the contact skills went down to about 66% in high A, but the power there is the carrying tool. So even if he hits 250, I think he'll be fine and still a very impactful guy. Carson Williams also has his own concerns with the hit tool, a little bit of a higher strikeout rate. Last year, AA ran a 69% contact rate, which is not terrible, but not good either. That's kind of like the one tool in Williams' profile that kind of lags behind, because he's an above average power speed guy, that he's consistently shown that as well. Like every year, he's putting up those good power speed numbers, and he's one of the best defensive shortstops. I think not just at the prospect level. I think he's one of the best defensive shortstops in all of baseball, including major leaguers. That's how good, defensively Williams is. So he's to be a very valuable piece for that Tampa Bay team long term. And having the chance to talk with Williams last year out in Arizona, he is a very smart guy. Very, he knows what he needs to do to get better. Like, he's got a good head on his shoulders, which is always, I mean, he doesn't show up in the box score, but it's always good to see, especially when you get a chance to talk with these guys. So, maybe he's also a lower average guy, but I don't think it's going to be like 220, anything like that. I think it'll be 250-ish range, but that could be 2020 and being like a really good 4-category guy that doesn't kill you in average. So, yeah, I like Williams a good bit. I feel like he's a little underrated in the fantasy world. He gets highly ranked like pipeline and all those because the defense that factors in. But I feel like when you talk about, top 25 caliber prospects, he doesn't really get as much love as he probably should.
Yeah, that's one of the things too to factor in, is like the Rays are a platoon team, but if the defense is, like the defense is that good, I don't think the
Yep.
Rays are going to want to platoon someone, like that. So it's
Yep.
not like, oh, this is a Taylor Wall situation or whatever. It's like, no, actually, or Brandon Lau. It's like, no, his defense is so good that you have to keep him on the field all the time. The one thing that I looked at with his season is it was almost like 3 mini seasons. Like he started off so hot through May and it was awesome. And then in June and July, he was atrocious. And then from August 1st on, he was good again 258, 363, 468 with 6 bombs and 7 steals. So it's like, is this something where it's, adjustments that he made? Pitchers adjusted on him and then found a hole in his swing, whatever, took advantage of him, and then he adjusted back? Or is this just going to be him being like a streaky player? That's like one of the concerns I have, because like he and Spencer Jones have both had this issue where they have had like similar seasons back to back where you see like streaks like this. So like, this is one thing I want to ask you about him is, do you think he's going to be like a streaky type player? Like is how far sticky, like streakiness is not really sticky, but like it's a thing, right? Everyone has like their sticky play, like their streakies, like Carlos Santana, for instance. Like no one's going to argue that guy is not streaky. You know what I mean? So like there's
Right.
always going to be like some guys that just run into the second half player, or like Kyle Schwarber, right? Like you don't want Kyle Schwarber in April, but then once it starts getting hot, then you want Kyle Schwarber. So it's like, is Carson Williams, do you think is he going to be that type of player, or is it just kind of like adjustment based, this kind of tale of 3 seasons here?
I feel like it was a little bit of both this past year. I always say that, especially when you get up, more so maybe when you debut, that pitchers at every level are going to get used to you, right? I think it always, pitchers need to adjust first to a hitter, and then the hitter needs to adjust back to the adjustments being made to him. So it's always like that game of cat and mouse. That's why I love many reasons why I love baseball so much. But I think there is, at the same time, I think there's going to be an element of streakiness with Carson Williams, just because contact skill, unless he takes a solid step forward in that regard, this year and moving forward, I think the lower contact rates are going to be more prone to the peaks and valleys where you could have him for like a month and he's hitting 350 in June with 8 home runs and 6 steals, and all of a sudden he's hitting a $189 in August or something like that. So I do think he's going to be maybe a bit streakier than most, but he'll probably be one end of the year. You're like, all right, another good season from Williams, and luckily going back to the defense, that'll help keep him out of a platoon first off, and also keep him in the lineup even when his bat might be struggling, just because of all the value he adds to Tampa Bay defensively. So, he won't be, sitting on the bench because, hey, we're still getting value from him defensively. So we'll kind of ride it out because we know the bat will get hot again soon.
Yeah. So number 23, I have Quinn Matthews. You have Bryce Eldridge. So starting on Bryce Eldridge for me, I've got him at number 15. And this is like one of my biggest movers in my last couple of rankings here. Because last season at this time, I had him at like 90 or 80. I don't know, in like the high 80s or something. And Welsh was like, what are you doing, dude? Like you got Bryce Eldridge way too low. And I was like, yeah, he's an A-ball. He's so young. And I was just like, I don't know. Let's see. He's a big dude. There's a lot of swing and miss in there. And I was like, I want to kind of see more before I bump him up. And then like about halfway through the season, I was like, okay, well, you were right. Like I've got to move him up like pretty high in my rankings. And so I moved him up, I think last time into like 30, 40, something like that. And then here I've got him at like 15 now. So now I'm like the high guy on him because I just think that the power is just so legit that it's going to beat San Francisco. Like I try to factor in the home ballpark a little bit when I'm ranking, especially like hitters or pitcher. Like if there's a Reds pitcher, I'm going to ding him a little bit for pitching in Great American Ballpark. And if it's a hitter, I might ding them like Montes. I might ding the homer total a little bit because he's going to be hitting in Seattle, which is a tough place to hit. So like I'll take home ballpark, like future home ballpark, into consideration a little bit, even if they, it's a prospect. They could get traded before they ever make the majors, so you never know. But even in San Francisco, which is a really tough place for lefties, I don't really care. Like I think his power is just so good that it's not really going to matter for him. Like he might lose a couple, but it's not going to be like an end all be all. I doubt like this is a Brandon Belt situation where you just see a guy who everyone thought he was going to hit 30 whatever, and then it turns into like an 18 homer profile here. But he just moved so fast through the levels, and he's already been good again this spring. And like I don't know what else we really need to see from him. I'm almost like I thought that he was going to be a cup of coffee guy this year a couple weeks ago, if you asked me. But I don't know. He might just force his way up sooner than you might think this year. So that's where I'm at on Eldridge. And then Quinn Matthews, I saw him a lot last year being here in Jupiter before he moved up to high A. And when he was here, he was not even throwing the changeup, which is like he was throwing that against the Blue Jays the other day, and that's a phenomenal pitch. Like it's rated by Eric Longenhagen as like a 60-65 changeup, and I didn't even get to see it live. Like he's just all fastball slider, just dominating everybody with 2 pitches when I saw him here in Jupiter. And he was throwing actually up to like 97 from the left side when I saw him. So I think that he might be able to I think his his top was like 95.1 or something the other day. But I think that he can get back up there, and it might be the stadium gun just giving him a little bit of a boost. But then again, like when I saw him, I think he was throwing at higher velocity, and if he can get back up there with that slider that he has, and now he's got a new sinker that he was throwing at 94 yesterday, and he's got the changeup. He's got a curve in there still too that he didn't even throw yesterday. But I'm really high on Quinn Matthews. I think he's a future number 2 starter probably. I don't know if he's has the ace potential on him, but I think he's a number 2 for a long-term starter. What do you think about these guys?
Yeah, no, I was kind of the opposite with Quinn Matthews. I was a little bit slower to kind of move him up last year. I mean, we had all those big pitching prospect breakouts, right? There was like a big cluster of them starting last season, first couple months of the season, and I was a little slow to. I wasn't bumping Matthews up maybe as quickly as some of the other names, and it was mostly because he had been lower velocity coming into the year, and we had the 3 or I think it was about 3 miles an hour velocity jump, and he was also 23 years old, kind of in single A. So I was like, all right, do this in double A. Does the velo stick? I kind of had those 2 questions, and then he kept doing it in the high levels, and the velocity stuck. I'm like, all right, the 2 questions I had, he answered. Now, since you did that, I'm going to move you up even more. So, Stan, now I have Schultz as a top 10 pitching prospect overall. I mean, he looked really good the other day, and yeah, I agree. I don't think there's ace potential, and I don't usually throw that term around too often. Like I probably have that for just a handful of guys right now. But hey, being a number 2, that's still pretty damn good. And I think he's going to pitch a lot with St. Louis this year. And that rotation's full, but some of that back half of that rotation's not great. So injury or just poor performance. I think he's going to spend more time in the majors than the minors this year, but we'll see. But yeah, I like Matthews a good bit, and then Bryce Eldridge. The concern I had with him entering last year was just how much contact will he get to? The contact skills were very poor in 2023. Granted, it was a smaller sample size, but they weren't great. It was like below 60%. So I'm like, all right, let's see if he can make contact at least a passable rate, and he did last year. I mean, I don't think he's ever going to be a guy that's contending for a batting title or even close to 300 or anything like that, but the contact skills were, a touch over 70% overall last year. And, swing and strike rate, 14%. Like, these aren't great, but I think it's passable. I think that he could hit 250, given his power, given his quality of contact. Like some power transcends fields. And when you have double plus to, elite, maybe even 80 grade raw power like Bryce Eldridge has, I think you could still hit 30 plus home runs a year. So if he's hitting at least 250, 30 plus home runs a year, just as a big middle of the order force, just driving a ton of runs. Yeah, I think you should be very highly sought after first baseman for fantasy purposes, especially with position getting a lot older. You need this kind of youth injection that's coming with him and Jack Caglione and Nick Kurtz. So we got some guys on the way, thankfully. So he's become a very hot commodity. I mean, he already is, but especially when he gets to the major leagues later on this year. So I mean, even if the average isn't great, kind of like same about Lazar Montes, that power is going to be a nice impact for fantasy purposes. So at this point, I think he's top 25 for sure.
Yeah, so Eldridge, one of the things that I like about this is like his profile. He's very aggressive, or has been at least 50.4% swing rate. That's way higher than guys like Mayo, for instance, like power wise. So a lot of times, like Emmanuel Rodriguez's swing rate is like 33% or something like that. So like a lot of time, these power guys, they'll just wait for their pitch. They'll sit back and wait for the one pitch that they want because they want to crush it. Like Eldridge is just super aggressive and tries to get on top of things, which could backfire. Like he might strike out more, but at the same time, I think that because he has that type of aggressiveness, he's also going to not be one of these guys who runs into this patiency issue and gets a lot of called strikes. Like he's going to be so aggressive that he's going to just cause a lot of damage, which I'm kind of like more on this year. It's like one of the things that I'm really looking for in prospects and just like hitters in general is I want guys who are going to be aggressive on pitches in the zone and are not going to just sit back and like wait for their pitch, because their pitch may never come. And then all of a sudden it's Walker K and you're a 3 true outcomes guy. Like I think Eldridge is gonna like beat that 3 true outcomes, even if he does strike out a lot, just because he is so aggressive in the zone. So next year we've got 22. You've got Kevin McGonigal, who like I've come around after doing these podcasts with people in the industry. I'm like the low guy. Like I've got him at like 62 or 61, and like I'm like the low guy on him. I've realized, and like a part of my ranking for Kevin McGonigal has just been like, I don't know if the power is going to come around. And then now there's like video of him like, oh, he's better now. He had the injury. He's better. And he's hitting it, his record EVs and stuff like this. So I'm like, okay, maybe he is going to be a bit of a power hitter, because before when I first saw him at the beginning of last year, I was like, this guy's just like, he's a really good contact hitter, but what is he, like a Jeff McNeil or something like that? And then he started stealing bags. And I'm like, okay, so he's a better version of James Triantos, basically, after he started stealing bags. And then now if power is coming around too, we've got a complete player here. Like the hit tool was never in question in my mind, but like now we've got a guy who I think like is really blowing up. And I'm just like, okay, yeah, my ranking in the 60s is like way too low. Should I have him in 25? I don't know if I, would bump him ahead of some of these guys, because I really like a lot of these guys. But I think that, if I were to redo my rankings again preseason, I'd probably have him around like the 35 range, something like that. Because like, for instance, I've got like Marcelo Mayer at 35, and I think for fantasy, McGonigal at this rate is going to be a more effective fantasy player than Mayer. Maybe, maybe not for real life, but I think that like with the speed at least that he has in the contact tool, like he has more speed than what Mayer is going to put up. So even if you call their contact tool even, McGonigal is going to bring you more steals at that time. Like Mayer's not a power hitter, so you give him the same thing on power, same thing on contact. Maybe McGonigal's contact's probably a little bit better too. So you give him that boost, and I should probably have McGonigal ahead of a guy like Marcelo Mayer at this point, especially with the injuries that we've seen from Mayer too. At 22, I've got Spencer Jones. You got him all the way down at 94, so you're just like out on him. Spencer Jones obviously is just like high volatility, right? Like this is just a boomer bust play from me. Welsh really is a huge believer in him, so I'm sure that's like affecting me since I podcast with him. It's just like making me like, Welsh is always like the little devil. He's not the angel; he's the little devil on my shoulder, 100%.
Oh yeah, Welsh is the devil, no doubt.
Yeah, you might listen to the voice and everything and be like, oh yeah, but no, he's got a little devil there, in there. He's gonna hear that and laugh. But anyway, Spencer Jones. There's just so much potential there. I'm like, okay, like he could be like he could be the best player out of all these guys. Like he could be the best fantasy guy. Like this could be O'Neal Cruz or, like, I don't know if it's Ellie, but like you could get like O'Neal Cruz numbers or something out of him if he actually hits. And like my thing that I always talk about with Spencer Jones is like, everyone's like, oh, but he's 24 now and he hasn't really, been consistent and the power hasn't really been there. But like, I look back at Aaron Judge, who, easy comp, same team, big dude, whatever, Yankees. But Aaron Judge was kind of at like the same level as Spencer Jones when he was this age. Like Aaron Judge had pretty bad minor league seasons until he finally broke out when he was like 25. So I kind of want to give Spencer Jones the benefit of the doubt a little bit. And this is another one of these streaky guys who are just like, he's terrible for the first half of the season. Then he always has a good second half. So like he just needs to really put it together and like reduce the K rate, because like 37% K rate in the minors is untenable. That's gonna relate to like a 40-something percent strikeout rate in the majors. So it's like, okay, you got Joey Gallo here with maybe a little bit more speed, but I just want to believe in Spencer Jones. I think the upside is so high that I can't drop him all the way down like you, just because like that ceiling is just whoa. Like I want to reach for that ceiling. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to give up on that.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. He's easily one of the most difficult guys to rank right now. I mean, because I've seen Spencer Jones live. I mean, he's been in Double A. He was in Double A all of last year and part of 2023. And Double A Somerset plays Portland, the team I get to see a lot here in Maine, a lot. So I don't know how many times I've seen him. It's probably in the vicinity of 8, 9, 10 times, something like that. And I've seen him hit some absolute bombs. Like ones that make you like just stop and admire. It's the power, even though he doesn't have the huge home run totals. I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions. Like, oh, he didn't hit a lot of home runs. I mean, the power's absolutely there. If you watch the guy play, you know it, and he's very athletic for his size too. So yeah, the if everything clicks with him, the upside is really really exciting for fantasy purposes. So that's why he's hard for me to rank that low. But at the same time, I've been burnt by these guys. Will Benson's another good example of that, and one of the more recent ones where it's like huge power, huge speed, just never hits enough to fully capitalize on that because you mentioned the K rate, the contact rate was 61.6% with an 18% swing strike rate. So there's like everything in the profile. It's really good or really bad. There's no like middle of the road tool with Spencer Jones. Even like he's he's either going to be 30 grade, 20-30 grade, or he's like 60-70 grade. There's no like 50 grades with him. It's just on both ends of the spectrum. So yeah, he's really tough to rank. I don't have any issues that anybody that wants to rank him high just because the upside is so high that it might warrant that ranking. But I just my personal kind of process. I've just been burnt by these low contact high K guys where I want to rank him high, but until he shows me some any type of improvements, just get that contact rate passable, 65% even, and I feel a lot better about it. So that's kind of why I have him down where I do. And then McGonigal, he's one of the guys this offseason, as I like to slice and dice my rankings, do team rankings, positional. And he's one of the ones that during this whole process where, I had him ranked, I mean, not low, but I wasn't like super like this high on him. And after really digging into the profile, I was like, man, I like this guy a lot more than I did. And I said I didn't dislike him, but the hit tool is so elite. Like I feel comfortable putting 70 grade on Kevin McGonigal's hit tool. He had nearly double as many walks as strikeouts last year. Hit 309 with a 401 OBP. I mean, we're talking about 89% contact, zone well over 90% contact rate. I mean, this guy is probably going to hit 300 plus with a 400 plus OBP, and he's above average runner. And there's sneaky pop here as well. I mean, he won't be a big power guy, but could he get to like, mid to upper teens home runs? Maybe even have a year or two when he gets into the low 20s? Yeah, I think he does because, he had solid, power last year. Average GV around 90 miles an hour, hard hit rate around 38%, all while being, pretty young for the level as well. So, yeah, he's one where I just like, all right, this profile I like a lot. It might not be the sexiest profile, but it gets the job done, and it's very, very high floor in general, and especially for his age. So, yeah, I pushed McGonigal pretty high.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna be up there next time because, like you said, like 95% zone contact. I think is just ridiculous. So next, you have Dalton Rushing at 21, and I have Luke Keeschel at 21, and I've got Dalton Rushing at 64, and then you have Keeschel at 53. So a couple guys again where there's a bit of a spread here. Dalton Rushing, the reason I have him ranked so much lower, there's a lot of like team context in there because I'm just like, okay, you got a really good hitter here, really great plate skills, above average power. There's not really any speed there, obviously. I mean, like he's a catcher who will probably move off to the outfield, I think. But it's just the Dodgers are like totally Dodgersing him. I'm gonna turn that into some sort of verb, but like they're doing this like Michael Bush type thing again, where it's like, okay, they're not even playing Pajes at this point. Like Pajes is like on the bench, so it's like there's not even room for Rushing, and I just feel like they're gonna waste him. It's like Michael Bush all over again. The Dodgers do this with all these guys. And when are we going to see him play? I just wish he was like traded at this point. If he's on another team and had opportunity, I would have him probably in like the 40s or something instead of it's in 64. So like that's kind of my thing on Rushing is just like I think he's really good. It's just I want to like him, but it's just like when is he going to get a chance based on team context? It's not really fair to him as a prospect, but like this is something as a fantasy player that you have to kind of take into account. Like this, he's just in this little trapped area right now of the Dodgers. Is like okay, let's make something happen. Let's move him. I've got number 21 here, Cool Hand Luke. He was awesome and basically missed like the last 6-ish weeks of the season because he had to go get Tommy John surgery. because he, needed Tommy John. And it sounds like, oddly, that he's going to be back like for the beginning of the season, because I was kind of thinking of it on a context of, okay, who else got Tommy John? Bryce Harper. Okay, he missed whatever months. And I was like, he'll probably be back in May or something like that. But it sounds like he's going to be back for the beginning of the season. And my F scores really love him. Like, I've got him at about an average contact for like major league player right now, above average plate skills, slightly below average power, well above average speed, 303, 420, 483 slash, 13% walk, 17% K rate. And again, his season got cut short, but he still had 15 bombs and 23 steals as a second baseman. So like, I think with this guy, you could run into some sort of like Jordan Westberg, Matt McLean type mashup, because he's got good bat speed. He's got some killer EVs. I like everything that I see with him. I don't think he's going to be like a superstar. Like, he doesn't have like that Jason Dominguez potential, but I think that he's just like a very well-rounded, above average player across the board. And the Twins almost like need someone like that, because I feel like all their players are like super volatile. And like, also you've got all these like injury guys. So hopefully like this is the only injury for him. But like, between like Royce Lewis's up and down season, then you guys like Byron Buxton, Emmanuel Rodriguez, like all these super volatile guys in their system. I feel like you need a little like consistency, and Keishel could provide like consistency. Maybe it's like a 2-hitter in that lineup at some point.
Yeah, no, Keishel is, it's funny because he doesn't really fit the mold that Minnesota's kind of been going after over the last, half decade or so. But Keishel is one of those guys where Keishel's profile always seems to get underrated, because it's like a McGonagall. It's not like the fun, flashy profile, but it's a profile that's going to be at the major leagues and have a long career, because he's got a good approach, he's got good contact skills, he's got some power and speed where he's going to not be a zero in either of those departments, and he's you can easily slap a plus hit tool on Luke Keishel, given his blend of contact and approach. And yeah, maybe he's more like a 15 to 20 homer and steal guy. But, we've seen this type of all around profile where maybe it's not, super impactful in any one, but just really solid across the board. And that still is a good fantasy player right there. And if that's going to come from second base, even better, because that position is not as great as it used to be, and some of the good options are getting older. So definitely need some fresh young blood here at second base. But I do also share a lot of the concerns you had with Dalton Rushing, because just looking at the player, I mean, he's got a really good approach. He's got above average contact skills too. Like, he's not just one of those like high OBP guys, like, just because he walks a lot. The contact skills he was around 78% last year, with a zone around 86% and swing and strike rate under 10%. And he's got above average to plus power. So one of the more polished hitters in all of the minor leagues. I mean, he's not going to provide, much speed. He's not really a great defender either, but I think they're going to get his bat in the lineup somehow, some way. Maybe that's just me hoping, because I like Dalton Rushing a good bit. And, my co-host on Toolshed, Chris Clegg, is even higher on Rushing than I am. And he's been high on him for a long, long time now. So, the bat is absolutely there with Dalton Rushing. But yeah, I just fear this is going to turn into Michael Busch 2.0, where it's just like he's just hitting dingers in AAA, just crushing there in Oklahoma City, and we're just like clamoring for him to be up. But how can you bring him up when you have that stacked lineup? I mean, he's not going to upseat Will Smith. He's not going to upseat Freddie Freeman. This is an injury. I mean, the outfield is stacked too. There's no spot where it's like, oh yeah, that could happen. He's waiting for an injury or some really poor performance from one of the outfielders to get in there. So I don't know how it's going to happen. Usually these things have a way of working themselves out. Maybe they have a lot of pitching injuries. They got to trade him to get another pitcher. I don't know. I'm just hoping something happens here, because the bat is really good, and I hope he gets that chance to, he's major league ready. So hopefully he gets that chance sooner rather than later, but we'll see.
Yeah, agreed. Number 20, you have another Dodger here, Zaire Hope. And then I have Jordan Lawler, who I feel like has been a prospect forever at this point, even though I think he's still only 21. It's just one of these names who's been at the top of the list for a while now. So Zaire Hope, he's one of the big hype guys off of the fall league. You probably got to see him live over there, right?
Yep.
In the fall league. Yeah.
Yep.
So he's a shorter dude with a big frame for a shorter guy. I guess like my concern, because I've got him all the way down at 96, is like he's only played a complex and A ball, and while the numbers are good, the frame, I'm just not really sure how much that's going to play out to being like a phenomenal fantasy player. Like I don't think he's going to be, even though he has like some nice exit velocity numbers, I don't know. I think he's more like a 25 homer guy who's probably going to steal way less bags than like what he's projecting out for last year, because he went 9-9 in 61 games. So you got to see him live. So you probably have, more input on me on him than I do. But that's just my take on him is like, I'm like, okay, he reminds me of like, maybe like a Josh Naylor-ish profile as like an outfielder, where, you get 25 homers with, a handful of steals and good batting average, which is good player, but I don't know if that's for me a top player. Jordan Lawler is just a guy that has ranked out on my F scores really highly forever now. He's got a 100 contact, 104 F discipline, 93 power, 168 speed. So very above average player. Like it's actually like pretty comparable tools to like Trey Turner as far as like F scores are concerned. Now I don't think he's going to steal as much as he had in minors when he gets to the majors. And this is another, concern where it's like, okay, he's blocked. It's like he's been blocked for a while now. The Diamondbacks have already come out and said if he's going to make the roster, he has to really, really earn it this spring. So it's kind of like, okay, and where's he going to play then at that point too? They just signed Perdomo to 4 years. So, and they obviously like him. So are they going to move Lawler to second and move Cattell back to the outfield? Or are they going to move Lawler to third and put Suarez at DH or something? Or, maybe put Suarez at first and Naylor to DH, or try to move Naylor back in the outfield. There's like this whole thing where it's like you got to move all these pieces around then if Lawler is going to make the team. And like it sounds like they still like him. And he was hurt a lot last year. He only played 23 games, but he actually played pretty well in the 23 games. So it's kind of like, what are we going to see here? Because he did have that really big breakout a couple of years ago, and like I'm not ready to just like give up on him because of a couple of injuries when we saw some really strong stuff out of him back when he was healthy. So what do you think about these guys, Eric?
Yeah, no, Jordan Lawler, I think you're gonna see a wide range of rankings on him just because there are the durability concerns, absolutely. But yeah, he's still a really fun prospect, and he's not like he's 24, 25 now. I mean, he's still still on the younger side, and he's already gotten a little taste of the major leagues. And yeah, he probably would, in a perfect world, he's not even prospect eligible anymore because he wouldn't have gotten hurt last year, and he would have already graduated off the list, in May or something like that last year. But him, DeLauder, others still prospect eligible, and it's a fantasy friendly profile. I mean, he's got the power speed blend, contact. There are some concerns. Maybe the contact doesn't allow him to hit for a super high average. We'll see. I'm not like super concerned about it personally, but there's still that power speed blend. I think is going to allow him to be an impactful player for fantasy. And this where is that? Where on the diamond is that? Because I thought it was to be shortstop, but then they signed Perdomo to that extension, like you mentioned. And I'm like, all right, well, maybe not at shortstop. And obviously Perdomo, not the flashiest guy, but he brings a lot of valuable defense and intangibles to that team. They love him there. So I don't know where that's going to be. I've heard maybe second base, but they got Ketel Marte there. Does he move to a corner outfield? I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that right now. We'll see how that works out. This spring and into the season. Kind of see where he's being played in AAA. So I assume he's a start down there. But yeah, I'm still high on him, and I think there's a good buying opportunity right now in dynasty leagues because I think the perceived value has dropped a good bit. And with Zaire Hope, yeah, I mean, he's not the biggest guy in the world, but he's really strong. Like, he gives me like NFL running back vibes, where one of the shorter but quick and powerful running backs. I don't have any examples off the top of my head, but he just has like that kind of look to him. Just a really strong frame. And I don't think he's gonna be a major stolen base guy, but he is a good athlete. So I think you could see just like 10 to 15 steals annually. Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be like 20 plus or anything like that though, but he's got a good blend of contact, approach, raw power. I mean, contact skills were damn near 80% last year overall. Doesn't swing and miss that much. And the raw power, I've seen him really put a charge into the ball. So I think this could be, at peak, I think we could be looking at like a 30 homer and bat. So And all that together, just no real red flags in the profile, which is really encouraging to see from someone that's just turned 20 back in mid-January. So still very young, and already having that pretty good all-around profile with the upside in the power department, especially has me pretty excited. And obviously, he's in a phenomenal system. Dodgers, one of the best, if not the best, in player development. Maybe he gets blocked on the road, but that's still a couple years away. So who knows what everything looks like in 2027 or whatever it is. So yeah, Zaire Hope, all the helium right now, and I think it's warranted.
Yeah, it's funny. I almost prefer the Dodgers prospects who are further away, just because it's okay, there's hope that they won't be blocked at that point. But who knows? By then, all of Team Japan might be on the Dodgers, so we're not really sure on what that
that
team's
that,
going to
that
look like.
very well might be the case.
Number 19, you have Charlie Condon, who we already discussed, and then I have Chase Burns, who you have at 62. Obviously, we have not seen Chase Burns play in the minors yet, but he was just so phenomenal in college. And I have a correlation chart that I use. Basically, I've created this correlation table on a spreadsheet where basically I can plug in numbers from college or from whatever level, and it'll correlate it to the majors. So it correlates from Aceball to the majors or whatever. So the stuff plays now in the majors. If he were to just pop up in the majors right now, he, by my F scores, has a 113 F stuff, which is 13% above average for the majors, which, 191 Ks and 100 innings in college is going to do that. But I think we just have a stud as far as stuff. Obviously, he's going to be pitching in Great American Small Park. So he's going to have to deal with that. But the fastball slider combo is going to be insane. And I just think he's going to be kind of I don't know if he's going to match the Skeens track exactly, but I think he's going to be a quick riser. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see him this year by the end of the year, just because he is so good that I think he's just going to work up levels and kind of do I think the Reds watched what the Pirates did with Skeens last year, and they're oh, we should probably do something like that with Burns. And Louder came up pretty quick too. So it wouldn't put it, I wouldn't put it past him if we see Chase Burns in the majors this year.
Yeah, no, I love Chase Burns. My ranking of him being a bit lower is not a not a reflection of him. It's just the way I rank pitching prospects in general, for the most part. So we actually just did the prospect crystal ball episode on Toolshed recently, where both Chris and I had him in the top 25. For this time next year. I think Chris might have had him as number one pitching prospect or number two, and I had him as my number three pitching prospect at that time. So you're definitely very, very high on him. Back in the whole Burns versus Hagen Smith debate, which are both very, very good pitchers. But I've always been kind of team Burns in that regard, whereas I think the arsenal is a bit deeper and the all around stuff is a bit better. Smith has a really good 2-pitch mix, but can he develop that third pitch? Burns again has the deeper arsenal. He can miss bats with the best of them. I forget who made the comparison, but it might have been Zach Beck, but I can't. I'm not going to say for sure. But comparing, the stuff with Burns in college to the stuff with Paul Skeens in college, and I don't think he was making a comparison in general, just showing how good the stuff is with Chase Burns. And yeah, you would have loved a little bit of a better landing spot. Maybe you would love Kansas City. Though maybe not. I don't trust their pitching development for the most part, but really just anywhere besides Colorado. And it's Dollander landing in Colorado and Burns landing in Cincinnati. I'm both guys that I love, and this landing in terrible home ballparks. But I think Dollander will conquer Coors to some degree, and I think Burns could develop into that really good number two behind Hunter Green. Hopefully they can get Lodolo as the three or Rhett Lauder or whoever, and just have that really good rotation. So yeah, Burns I think is going to be he's already one of the best, but I think he could be one of the tier one pitching prospects in baseball very soon. Yeah, I love Chase Burns.
Yeah, I agree. So at 18, you have JJ Weatherholt, my favorite player in the world, and I've got Weatherholt at 13, by the way. And then I have Leodalis DeVries at 18, who you have at 16. So I'm going to start on JJ here. Obviously, Cardinals fan here. I got to see him a lot at the end of last year in Jupiter, and I saw him here at just the other day. I was at the game. I got video of him hitting that Oppo Taco from right behind home plate.
Nice.
Yeah, I posted that all over X, and that's kind of been a blow up thing. But yeah, JJ Weatherholt. When I saw him last year, every time that he hit the ball, insane, like how hard it sounds completely different. I saw a lot of really good players come through last year in the minors here in Florida, and I saw Walker Jenkins, even though he didn't even lift the bat the whole time. So like I don't know how it sounded. The ball sounded coming off the bat because he just walked like every at bat when I saw him. But but JJ Weatherholt, he hits the crap out of the ball. Like he had like an average of like 92 exit velocity or something last year. And just already insane stuff from him this year. At the game I was at, he hit a single. It had the Apotaco home run, flashed some really nice defense from shortstop, and on a Shea Whitcomb hit, like really hard hit. And he stole a base the other day with like a ridiculous sprint speed. So I just think he's gonna be a stud. I think like my comp that I gave to him is like a Marcus Semien, Corbin Carroll mashup kind of player. Like I just think he's gonna be a beast. He hits the ball so freaking hard, and he's just such a good hitter. Like he's such a professional hitter, and then he's got the tools too. Like I think he is like about as a lock. He's one of like the most locky players that you can find. Like he's just going to be so good across the board. Like he's not going to be, he doesn't have the Spencer Jones upside of 30, 30, 40, 40, whatever. But like I think Weatherholt's going to be like a 25 guy with a really good batting average, like a 280 batting average or something every year, and good on base skills. Leonidas DeVries, this is the player with more upside, right? Like I think he probably has a higher ceiling. Like he has the 30, 30, 40, 40 type upside if he gets to it. I comp them even to like a switch hitting Alfonso Soriano at shortstop because he's got that that kind of Soriano swing that you see from a lot of Dominican guys. But 116 WRC plus as a 17-year-old at Aceball, that will definitely play. 11 bombs, 13 steals in 75 games. The main thing to watch with him is the contact tool going to like get there. He was definitely better as the season went on, just like Sebastian Walcott, who we'll talk about later. Like second half, he was way better until he got hurt. 252, 380, 480, with 32 extra base hits after May 23rd in 62 games with 11 bombs and 12 steals. So like literally like all his production was coming after May 23rd. So basically everything he did before that kind of like ruined his final line. If you're just looking at like the final line, you're not getting like the whole story on Leonidas DeVries. What do you think about these guys, Eric?
Yeah, I mean, he started off different. He started off rough in low A, but definitely, before he got hurt and landed on the IL, like, he was tearing the cover off the ball. So, I mean, there's never a good timed injury, but that was just really poorly timed landing on the IL. But yeah, he's one where he is, again, not like you mentioned, doesn't have the one loud, tool that wows you, but he's just really good, even good defender too. So he's just really good across the board. Where I do think with some natural progression, I think the hit tool will be fine. I don't have any issues there with kind of where he's at in his progression, and it could be plus power and above average speed. I mean, I think he's still got some more room to add a little bulk on that frame. But even if he does, I think there's so much athleticism where I think he can add bulk without sacrificing speed, as we often see. Maybe there's that little bit of that trade off. I don't really think that'll be the case with him. I think he'll still be able to impact the game with his legs too. So yeah, where he already is, in his development, it's really exciting. And yeah, he's one of the ones where he just could have this massive year upcoming. And Weatherhold, yeah, every time I look at my rankings, I feel like Weatherhold keeps sliding a little bit further up and up. I mean, the concern with him coming out of the draft, which is why he kind of fell a little bit and fell in FYPD rankings slightly, is he had that injury, but the all round profile is there. Like the skills are there. I mean, he makes good contact. He has a good approach. He's got the above average power speed blend, where it's I think people will be talking about him very soon, maybe even by end of May. How they're people are talking about like a Matt Shaw right now, where it's like, all right, this guy's top 10. He's above average basically across the board, impact the ball game in a variety of ways, has a well-rounded profile offensively for fantasy. Yes, the metrics were there. I mean, he had like a 55% hard hit rate or something like that after the draft. So, I mean, I don't think there's really any issues with durability. I'm not gonna say he's injury prone or anything like that, because it was just kind of like that one injury from last year. So, assuming that's a non-issue moving forward, which it looks like it will be a non-issue, all-around profile is going to turn him into a really fun player for fantasy. And I wonder kind of where he winds up. They move him over to second base. So obviously they have Mason Wynn at shortstop, who's really good at shortstop. So maybe you see Weatherholt move over to second base or something like that, which would be even more fun if we had Weatherholt into the mix at second base. But we'll see. It's kind of still to be determined on that end of it. But yeah, Weatherholt's a guy that I feel like pretty soon you're going to be seeing him ranked like, 8th, 9th, a lot of places.
Yeah, I think as a Cardinals fan, I would assume that he would move to third because their whole plan with moving Arenado is, oh, we're going to trade him and then Gorman's going to move to third. But like, I've seen enough of Gorman's defense to know that he's not very good defensively.
Yeah.
And I've seen Weatherholt play quite a few times now, and he is much better defensively. And if I'm running that team, I am moving my better defender to third and my worst defender to second. So that's just the way that I would be doing things if I'm running the Cardinals. But who knows? They might just like Thomas Sajazi enough that they play Sajazi at third and move Weatherholt to second, and they say, okay, Gorman, you're DH or something like that. So we don't really know what they're going to do at this point. We'll see. Heimblum is in now, and hopefully things are looking up for the prospects now for the Cardinals. Number 17, you have Jackson Jobe, and I have Kobe Mayo. So Jackson Jobe, I'm actually a little concerned about Jackson Jobe. I don't know if you are. And I've got him up at 11. And I'm like, did I rank him too high? Like, I just drafted in a DC Kumar Rocker over Jackson Jobe, even though like Jackson Jobe has a more guaranteed spot in the rotation for this year. I'm just kind of concerned about Jobe's pitch mix to date because he has like really good stuff. His stuff plus numbers just pop off the charts, but like the stuff has not led to optimal results. And he did run into some walk issues. So I'm like a little bit concerned actually of Jackson Jobe because before he was high command, just insane stuff. And like, obviously this stuff's good, but it's just not, he's not turning the stuff into strikeouts. And like the Tigers have been pretty good at developing pitchers. Like we saw Scooble be awesome, but like Mize, Manning, those two guys didn't work out. So they're kind of like, I guess maybe more hit or miss than you might think. Flaherty, they made good. So like I kind of have some hope that like, okay, they're going to work with Jobe now. He's going to be with the major league staff. They're going to, get this pitch mix straightened out. That's like the biggest concern I have for him is pitch mix, not really anything else. I think it's just like, okay, he's just got to be throwing the right stuff at the right time because like, obviously like he's got crazy stuff. It's just not turning into Ks, and it's like, it's going to fix, I think, but I do have, some concerns with him at this time. Kobe Mayo, I'm kind of down on Mayo. Again, this is like a little team context. It's like Dalton Rushing all over again a little bit with Mayo here, where it's like he's just completely blocked by the Orioles, and the Orioles do not seem like they want to make a move of any of their prospects. So it's like, okay, they're not doing anything. They're not trying to trade for a pitcher when they should. They've got all these prospects. So like, what is their ultimate game plan for Mayo? So that just has me concerned a little bit with Mayo. Like he has, 82% zone contact. So it's good zone contact there, 115 max EV. So you got like a really good power hitter here, and he's just kind of like floating around in AAA, Michael Busch style. So, I mean, like the good thing about Mayo is that he's still only gonna be 22 this year. So like he does have age on his side a little more than like guy like Rushing, where Rushing is gonna be 24. So, like, I guess you've got that in there, but like, I would wish he would just get traded, or like they would trade someone, trade Kierstead, trade someone to make room for him, please, or Mountcastle or whoever, just to get Mayo up in the majors.
Yeah, no, you and me both. I was kind of hoping that back when there was a lot of trade talks surrounding like Seattle pitchers, and like, oh, maybe Baltimore's kind of looking for another arm, so maybe they could use Mayo in a deal to get one, maybe like a Brian Wu or Bryce Miller or something like that. But obviously that never came to fruition. But Kobe Mayo, I mean, the power's absolutely there with Mayo. I think this is a 30 homer bat. I think in kind of a weird comp, I think he could be like the Nick Cassiano of the infield, something like that.
Yeah, I like that.
So it's like a really good. I don't think he's ever gonna be like a stud. I thought maybe he could be like the next Austin Riley. I've kind of cooled off of that. That's high praise, obviously. I don't think he's quite like gonna be that. That'd be a very high percentage outcome for him. But I think he could be, like better than Mark Vientos. I mean, maybe he's like a top 75 overall player at some point, something like that. Where I think he's still gonna be a top 100 guy long term. But yeah, it's like Dodgers on the West Coast, Baltimore on the East Coast. I mean, it's a good problem to have where you have a really good, MLB roster and really good prospects trying to break in. I mean, we saw last year Mayo just absolutely hitting tank after tank after tank in AAA, but just didn't have a chance. When he did get a chance, he didn't do well. though I'm not holding that against him. I think some people are. I'm really not. So, the contact skills, a little bit of a question there. So I think he's maybe more 250, 260, but again, 30 plus home runs. So he's gonna be a really good corner infielder. It's just a matter of, is that in Baltimore? Is that this year? I don't know. A couple questions that still need to be answered. But Jackson Jobe, I'm not really too concerned with Jobe. I mean, last year I don't think he was fully healthy for a lot of that season. So I wonder how much that plays into it. Obviously he had the hamstring. I think it was hamstring or quad. Hamstring, I think it was, issue last year. And maybe he's not the pinpoint specialist that he was in 2023, but I think there's a middle ground here where Jobe's always shown advanced feel for his age. So I do think when it's all said and done, and he's established major leaguer, that he is a guy that's like above average or better than league average in walk rate. And I think the stuff's gonna eventually miss more bats. I mean, he's shown that he can miss bats. Not as much last season, but he had a near 16% swing and strike rate back in 2023. I mean, he's adding a curveball this year, and I believe either a cutter or a sinker. So many new pitches. It's for everybody. It's kind of hard to keep them straight. But I know the curveball was one, and the other one was either a cutter or a sinker. But slider really good. Obviously, one of the best sliders in all of baseball. The velocity's there. He's got a good feel for his changeup as well. And yeah, Detroit's been kind of hit or miss with their big names. And obviously the big three, everyone remembers Aceball, obviously now one of the best pitchers in baseball. Cy Young Award winner, Mize Manning have not worked out. So it is a little bit hit or miss in that regard. But I'm definitely a believer in Jobe's talent. And like I said, I don't have pitching prospects ranked this highly that often unless I'm incredibly high on them. And yeah, I'm definitely very high on him. I think he has a case. I mean, I have Painter right now as my number one guy on the pitching side. I mean, you can make a case for Jobe. You can make a case for Noah Schultz. A lot of good guys right now. But yeah, Jobe, for me, my number two guy. And I'm really looking forward to see what he can do this year with Detroit.
Yeah. Number 16, you have Leodalis DeVries. We already talked about him. And I have Nick Kurtz, who you have at 30. So right outside of this little subsection here that we're talking about. Nick Kurtz, just phenomenal start. Like basically what he did after getting drafted and like what he did in the fall league is just like very reminiscent of what Wyatt Langford did the year prior. Obviously, he doesn't have the speed of Wyatt Langford. So like the upside fantasy wise isn't all there because he's a first baseman. So, it's not, 1-to-1 comp, but he did walk more than he struck out last year between A and AA, which is awesome. And F score wise, this guy rates out for me like 106 contact, 129 discipline, 115 power. Like today, if he was in the majors, that rate that like compares with Christian Walker like right now if he were to play. Now and also the Athletics are playing a minor league stadium, so that's also going to be nice. The thing is, what are they going to do, right? Like, I think Kurtz is probably good enough to break camp, just like Langford did last year, but they are probably going to want to give Soderstrom more of a whirl at first base to see what they've gotten him. I think ultimately Soderstrom moves into like this backup catcher / DH / like, I don't know, maybe plays in left field or something type role, like some of these other catchers when teams have too many catchers have, like MJ Melendez or Varsho or whatever. So we might see something like that ultimately with Soderstrom because I think that first base job is going to be Kurtz's. And I think it's going to be sooner rather than later because just across the board, everything that he's done has just been phenomenal from, college to the minors to Arizona Fall League. And I feel like he's just a wrecking ball, that just keeps going. He's a freight train right now. And it's like whoever's in his way is just going to get knocked out of the way.
Yeah, no, Kurtz was incredibly impressive. I mean, it was kind of funny because when we were getting ready to go out there, Eldridge was out there, and then he got pulled like right before we went out for first pitch Arizona. But then Nick Kurtz went out at the same time. So like, all right, well, we don't get Eldridge, but we get Nick Kurtz, and saw him probably 4 or 5 times the week I was out there, and didn't hit any home runs in my live looks, but he was just you saw the type of hitter that he's going to be. I mean, he controlled all of his bats. He was never rarely fooled. And I've already questioned like, all right. I mean, my last update I had Eldridge over him, but I'm like, do I like that? Do I think the Eldridge is going to be better than Nick Kurtz? Because you can kind of like look at all right, the two main tools here for these first basemen, the hit tool and the power. I don't think either one are going to provide a lot of speed, so we can kind of just like put that to the side. And it's like, all right, do I, overall, do I think Eldridge has the power upside? Yes. Is it a big gap? No. You look at the hit tool. All right, Kurtz has the edge there, but do I think there's a bigger edge to him in the hit tool than Eldridge has in power. It's kind of like something I've been really kind of thinking about. Like, all right, which do I value more? So I'm thinking I'm gonna close this gap on these two in my upcoming updates, and maybe Kurtz moves into that number one spot because if you're ranking on just like all right highest floor, I think you put Kurtz top 10. I mean, I think he's so advanced. I mean, this guy could hit in the major leagues right now. I mean, he's got join Rooker and Lawrence Butler in the middle of that order sooner rather than later. I mean, maybe not. Maybe they hold him back till July or something like that. But it'll be this year, and he'll probably graduate prospect eligibility this year. I'd be surprised if he didn't. Yeah, and he's got to be one of those good average, high OBP, really good power, maybe like a 280, 380, 30 home run type of guy. So yeah, I think if Kurtz keeps moving up, moving up, he might even be like top 25 for me by opening day. And yeah, he might sneak past Eldridge. So that's something that's gotten really close in my mind.
Yeah, I've got him back to back here. Even at 15,
Yeah.
I've got Bryce Eldridge, and then you have Jordan Lawlers. And we'd already talked about both of those guys, so we're going to move over to 14, where you have Emmanuel Rodriguez, who I have at 5, and I have Matt Shaw, who you have at 8. So Emmanuel Rodriguez, I'll start on here. I already kind of mentioned that he's just this super patient guy, but like there's a ton of power speed here. This is what it comes down to is like I want to make sure I want to see if he can be more aggressive because the thing is like you like to see 9.4 swinging strike rate, that's awesome, but you don't like to see a 33.3% swing rate because if you are that patient, that's overdoing it. You're gonna fall into like the Edouard Julien / like Lars Nootbaar trap of just being like way too patient of a guy that like even though like Nootbaar has all these awesome exit velocity numbers, they're never gonna play out because he's like doesn't swing the bat enough. So like Rodriguez could fall into that little bit of a trap here, where he just doesn't swing the ball enough. But I think he's gonna be stud for points leagues. If you're in points or OBP, like this guy's gonna be a beast. Like wise 181 for me. 120 power, 95 speed, and just everything here. I love the tools. It's just like just swing the ball more, please, because he almost has a 115 max EV. And then when it comes to Matt Shaw, like obviously Matt Shaw is going to get like giant proximity jump here because he's going to be breaking camp with opening day. When I did my rankings, it was before Bregman signed, so I wasn't really sure. Okay, is Bregman going to come and block him? Would he move to second? Are they going to try to trade Horner if they sign Bregman? Like what's going to happen here? But like, he's got the role. I think he's going to have a role probably no matter what. You already talked about a bit about Shaw. Like, I think he's going to be come into the league like pretty much average across the board as a rookie, which is pretty good. Most rookies come in below average and like suffer from contact struggles or strike out too much. So I think he's going to come in and maybe hit like 260 or something like that with 16, 17 bombs. And he's going to put up some steals. 25 steals from a third baseman is pretty nifty. It's kind of like David Wright-ish. Like we haven't seen that since like David Wright was around. It's almost like this is what you wanted from Noel V. Marte, really, before like the whole steroid thing. And you're going to get it here from Matt Shaw with the Cubs.
Yeah. Oh god, Marte. He burned me so hard last. I had so many shares. I whiffed a third base last year. It was like I left a lot of him, a lot of Jake Berger, which ended up turning out great, but not in the first half. And then what was the other one? Keep Brian Hayes, who I just completely whiffed at that position last year. But yeah, Matt Shaw. I mean, no need to go into him anymore. But yeah, I think he's just be above average across the board offensively. It's kind of more of a some of the parts guy and just be a really good all around player. So that's why, yeah, I have him in my top 10. Rodriguez, I've had in my top 10, and I had him in theirs, I think, as recently as maybe like my August update last year, so later in the season. But, the questions with him, I mean, there's a lot of good and a lot of, red flags here where, all right, is he too patient? We've seen that really hinder guys where, Rodriguez has massive power. There's no denying that whatsoever. But he's too patient. Like, it's great to have a higher walk rate. Absolutely. But when your walk rate starts getting like up over 20%, for the most part, I'm like, all right, are you being too patient and limiting the impact you can do with the bat because you're maybe not swinging at pitches you could drive and do damage on? So that's the question. Can he answer that? Can he be a bit more aggressive? And then also, the contact is a little bit on the lower side. It was about 67% last year, though. He didn't play a lot last year, which is the other concern. It's like it feels like he's always either on the IL or he's always got to sit out for a couple of days because of this, his shoulder sore, or his ankle, or this and that. So that's another question. I'm like, all right, is there maybe a little bit of a durability question mark here? And we've seen with Minnesota, durability isn't exactly their strong suit. For let's look at Byron Buxton and Carlos Correa, though he had issues before he got there, but so maybe that's a little bit of a concern just organizationally. So he's been a harder one for me to rank. He's obviously an elite prospect. So I've dropped him down into the teens now just because of those concerns, but he could easily be back up in the top 10 very quickly. And the upside is massive. The massive power. Even solid speed there as well. So yeah, the upside is a monster. It's just, can he be aggressive enough and stay in the field enough to fully kind of get to that level?
Yeah, I mean, he's hurt right now even, so go figure. Number 13, you have Andrew Painter. I have JJ Weatherholt, whom we already talked about. I have Andrew Painter actually at number 4. So we're kind of here on the same pitchers where Painter's my number 1 and Job is my number 2. It's just I rank them a little bit more aggressively. Now that Painter is healthy, I'm happy to boost him right back. Like, in case anyone forgot, like he almost, like, there's a chance if he never got hurt in 2022, he might have like debuted even then because he was so good in the minors. 32.4% K minus walk rate in 2022, 16.2 swing strike rate. Or I guess it was 2023. They were talking about him debuting prior to the spring training last year. 32.3 CSW even in the minors with a 156 ERA and a .89 WHIP. Just insane numbers. F score wise, he's got a 107 stuff, so that rate's higher than Job, who had like a 101 on my F scores, and his control is also better at 111 versus Job's, who was like a 99 due to the last year. I think here that 99 miles per hour on the fastball. I don't know. Were you able to see him in fall league? Because like I want to know if the velocity was all the way up to like where it was before is like one of the main things. But great curve too. I love his curve with the fastball.
Yeah, no, I did have a chance to see Painter. It was great. We made the trip. It was up to the farthest ballpark from where we were out in Surprise, which is about a 50-minute drive or so from kind of like where the hotel is and where everything's at for First Pitch, Arizona. But yeah, it was worth the drive to go out and see him because he flew through Double A so damn quick. Back in a couple years ago, that I didn't have a chance to see him come through this area, but. Yeah, Painter, the velocity is maybe not like 100% back, but it was pretty damn close. And the breaking stuff was still really, really sharp. Curveball, slider. You saw him to change up a bit as well. And yeah, it was. I was kind of the same way where I'm like, all right, this guy is probably the most talented guy in the minor leagues, but he's gonna be missing the entire year. This was this time last year, so I bumped him down accordingly. He was still top 100. I didn't go crazy and bumped like 150 or anything like that, but. Now that I'm like, all right, he's back. I saw him in my own 2 eyes. Looked really good. He was, command was a little spotty, but not, concerning because he's shaking off the rust after being, off the mound for so long. So yeah, they're gonna hold him out till June, July, whatever it's gonna be. But yeah, I'm still insanely like this guy's gonna be an absolute stud. And having him up there with Wheeler and Nola, I mean, it's just and also Sanchez. Like this rotation's already really good in Philly, and they're going to be adding in Andrew Painter midseason, which is just almost unfair. But yeah, the fact that he is back healthy now, you mentioned that he had one of the best minor league seasons we've seen in recent memory from a pitcher, being back in 2022. When we were down in Florida, during spring training in 2023, like he was the talk. Like he was going like top 200 in drafts, and then the elbow. News came out, and that was right when we were down there when that news broke. So that was really interesting time to be down there. But yeah, assuming he can stay healthy moving forward, and these elbow issues are behind him fully. I mean, sky's the limit. Cy Young caliber upside. One of the few guys I'll say, yeah, he's an ace. He's a number 1, no doubt in my mind about that. So yeah, I think I do like pitchers a little bit lower in general, like I mentioned, but he's my number 1 pitching prospect, and it's gonna be really fun to see, how he looks this year in minor league games and then in the majors later in the year.
Yeah. Let me give you a quick question here. 2026, who pitches more innings, Andrew Painter or Roki Sasaki?
Oh, 2026. Man, I want to say Painter. I mean, he's bigger. I feel like he could, he's a little more durable long term than Sasaki, and the Dodgers maybe are always limit Sasaki a little bit, as they have so many other options. They can afford to maybe go 6-man here and there. So I'll say I'll lean painter, but I don't exactly feel really confident about that either.
That's why I ask. It's a hard one, but I
It
agree.
is.
I think Painter too. I think I'd go Painter on that one. Number 12, especially now that he's had the Tommy John, it's over with. Like he's good to go. Roki, who
Right.
knows?
Yeah.
Number 12, you have Samuel Basayo. I have Travis Bazana. You have Bazana at 7, and I have Basayo at 7. So here's another trade, 12 for 7 here that we
Yep.
have. So Basayo, I absolutely adore based on just age to level. What he's done on an age level basis is ridiculous. And I know, like, I have a Cubs fan friends who are like, "How come you're so high on Basayo, but then you ding Ballesteros?" I'm just like, there's a huge difference body wise here. Like we're not really gonna get into that. But Basayo, just what he did, double A, triple A as a 19-year-old last year. He's gonna be only 20 this year. Like I think that you have maybe a Kyle Schwarber with a better hit tool here. Ultimately, once the power even develops further, he's a catcher who could also move off of catcher. So there's kind of like that little thing in there too that
Yep.
could happen. But 122 WRC plus at age 19 at AA and AAA is crazy. So I give him a nice little bump based on age to level. And then for Travis Bazana, I'm a Cardinals fan, so it was really hard for me to put Bazana over Weatherholt, especially since I like saw Weatherholt so much. But when I plugged Bazana into my system, really the difference here is speed. Like I put them both in my system and they both like in my F scores and they both are like very, very close. The
Yep.
biggest difference is that Bazana has more speed based on my projections for my system. So I just gave them the edge just because like more or less like they kind of spit out very similarly from like what they're going to probably do as far as like a batting line comp. But I just think Bazana has more steal upside here between the two guys. Not to mention, St. Louis sucks for a ballpark for hitters. So like Cleveland is kind of like a neutral ballpark, more or less. Like it leans a little more to pitchers, but it's not like super pitcher friendly like St. Louis is, which St. Louis is terrible for lefty hitters, and Weatherholt's a lefty. So that's just something to take into consideration with Weatherholt's future.
Yeah. No, I think ultimately, they could be really similar ball players, like overall value wise, Bazana and Weatherholt. And I think you could say that the upside is pretty even and maybe even get the slightest edge to Weatherholt. But, reason why I have Bazana a little bit ranked higher is I just feel a bit safer with Bazana. I mean, I think he's one of the more advanced players in the minor leagues. And not to say that, Weatherholt's not advanced, but look at the blend of contact, approach that Bazana brings. I mean, it's a plus hit tool pretty easily. Very confident saying that. And yeah, he doesn't have the big time power speed, but this could still be an above average power speed guy and probably plus speed as well. So maybe you keep looking at a guy that hits you 280, gives you a good OBP, low to mid 20s home runs, maybe mid to upper 20s steals, something like that. Just really good 5 category production. I mean, he'll hit Summers, probably hit second, something like that, score a ton of runs, drive in a good amount as well. I think, both with him and Chase DeLauder, I think they're going to have two really good, prospects, in that lineup, at some point this year, probably a bit later on for Bazana. I think they're going to push him hard. They'll push him as he's so advanced, but I don't think he's going to be up like early or anything like that. I think he could be up like August or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like Bazana, one of the, again, if we're ranking on floor, he's probably top 5 prospect right now, just given the blend of skills he has. And he's so advanced and has, he's not just a high floor guy. There is a pretty high ceiling. I mean, we're talking about a guy that could go 20 plus. That obviously, leads to high rankings and a lot of value in fantasy. So yeah, Bazana, complete package, no real weaknesses unless you want to say, yeah, he's a kind of a below average fielder. We don't really care about that. I don't think he's going to be like, moving off second base. I think that's his spot moving forward. And again, he's another guy that's going to be really needed at this position that's kind of lacking a lot of talent right now. So hopefully we get, Christian Campbell and him and others coming up. And yeah, he's going to be maybe a guy that could be like top 5 pretty soon. Yeah, at this position.
And then Basayo.
Oh yeah, totally for Messiah. Yeah, but Messiah. It's funny. I feel like the I'm not saying he's a sell right now, but I feel like the perceived value has gone so high that it's at least worth putting him on the block. And whether it's you have the on the block thing, or you have a Discord for your league, or a messenger chat, or whatever it is. Like hey, I'll listen to offers on Messiah. As I think every time I rank him, no matter where I rank him, everyone's like, "Oh, he should be higher." I'm like, "Do I haven't like at one point I had him ranked like ninth, and that wasn't even high enough for some people." So like, I feel like perceived value on him is insanely high. I mean, as it should be. I'm not saying it's not warranted. Like you mentioned, the age to level production for him has been really, really impressive. Is he first base long term? Is he catcher? Is he a little bit of both? There's some DH. Another question that we can't really answer right now is obviously, probably first base if I had to lean one way, just because obviously they have Adley there right now, and we'll have him there for a long time. So outside of an injury, maybe he moves over to the first base. There are still some questions about, contact. It did dip a little bit the upper levels. I'm not digging him too much just because, as we mentioned, he was young for the level and still hitting for good power, a little bit of speed in there too. I don't think he'll be a zero in the speed department. So, what does the eligibility look like is obviously the big question here. Hopefully you can see some gains with the contact skills this year in AAA. But yeah, he's one of the best bats in the minor league. So no matter, we'd love to have that catcher eligibility, obviously. But even if he's first base, long term and loses catcher eligibility, he's still gonna be a really damn good first baseman as well. And he'll be obviously right up there with the Eldridges and the Kurtzes of the world and the Jack Cagliones. So yeah, whatever it looks like positionally, he's gonna be a really good bat. But I just don't think we see a lot of him with Baltimore this year. He's probably in AAA for a good portion of the year. So not much of a 2025 impact, but long term, yeah, this guy's to be an absolute stud.
Yeah, if you can't make room for Kobe Mayo yet, then Basayo's got to take a seat back.
Exactly.
Number 11, you have Max Clark here. I have Jackson Jobe, who we already talked about. I have Max Clark at 10, so we're kind of like right on the same page here. And then you have Mayo at 10, who we already talked about. So we'll dig into Max Clark here. Max Clark, a great hit tool, great plate skills, fantastic speed. I'm just waiting for the power to develop. It's not like a Kevin McGonigal situation. I mean, he had 9 bombs, and I think it's in there for him to be a 20 homer guy. But I guess I'm curious as to whether we're going to see more than that at the major league level. Is he going to be more like a 20, 30 guy, or like what are we looking at? Like, to me, like I look at his line and I'm just like, really what he's doing is like what Dylan Cruz was doing, just at a lower level in a younger age at this point. So it's almost like he's just like tracking with Dylan Cruz right now, kind of in a way. I think he's showing better plate skills and maybe a little bit better of a hit tool than Dylan Cruz. When you compare age to level, but besides that, like he's almost like following that line of what Dylan Cruz is doing through the minors. So what do you think about Clark?
Yeah, so in that crystal ball episode I referenced earlier, I actually had Max Clark up there as my number one overall prospect this time next year, because I do think the power comes along. Is he gonna be a 30 home run guy? Maybe not. I wouldn't rule that out, but I think it's more all right. He'll get to like upper teens, low 20s, and because he's a very strong guy. I mean, he hits the ball hard. It's kind of still coming into being more the raw power to game power translation. But he's already shown, that he has those exit velocities in him, and he looks bigger this year from what I've seen than he did last year. So obviously still very young. I think he just turned 20 not too long ago, if I recall correctly. So still very young overall. Gonna be up, probably back at high A, get some double A this year as well, and already has that good foundation, right? You're just waiting that power is the X factor, but he's already has a really advanced hit tool. I mean, he was near 80% overall contact rate last year. He's an elite athlete. It's maybe even double plus speed with him. So, you got the, high average, high OBP profile. You got 30 plus steal profile. And is he more of a 12, 15 home run guy, or is he 18, 20 into the low 20s? I lean towards the latter there. I think he does get up to around 20 home runs. And if he's 20 home runs, 30 plus steals, he's going to be guys that get hit high in the lineup. I think he's going to be one that, annual, up there on the runs scored leaderboards. I mean, I'm not doing a direct comp, as obviously comping him to this guy would be very unfair, but like a Corbin Carroll, but scale it back just a little bit, right?
Mhm.
Where it's going to be, the speed to be more prevalent than the power, but there's still power in there. It's kind of Corbin Carroll, scale it back 80, 90%. I think we could be looking at like a top 30 to 40 player when he's kind of settled in and hitting, in the top half of that pretty Detroit lineup that's already pretty good. I think it's just going to keep getting better and better with all these young guys that are bringing up. Maybe Clark and McGonagall are the 1-2 they're moving forward and just getting on base, scoring a ton of runs. So yeah, Clark, I think that power comes along, and if it does, watch out. It's going to be a really fun year for him.
Yeah, I agree with you. I actually had the same Corbin Carroll comp on him, so I agree 100% with you. Number 9, you have Chase DeLauder, so you're pretty high on him. I've got him at 31, and I had DeLauder actually. I did an episode with John Anderson on his podcast, and we did like a value redraft type prospect thing. And he's like my top hitter. I actually just drafted him in a DC, even in like the 23rd or 24th round or something like that. So I'm pretty high on DeLauder for this year. I think he breaks camp. I'm just going to leave it at this. He's a doubles machine. He hits a double every third game in the minors, but he gets hurt all the time. So it's like Emmanuel Rodriguez almost to a point with the injuries. Even more so, really, because he's been on the field even less. It's just for him a matter of health, I think, and hopefully he breaks camp because I like him way more than Will Benson. And then number 9, I have Sebastian Walcott, who is just an absolute stud. I think that he could be like a Fernando Tatis light, kind of like how you said, like 80, 90%, something like that. But I actually think he sticks a shortstop. I don't think he moves off the outfield. I think he could stick. Second half last year, 293, 350, 496 slash with 32 extra base hits and 19 steals. And that's in 58 games in the second half. So he was just phenomenal in the second half. And like I talked about it before on another podcast, but I was like, okay, he went into this like skills competition thing that they do it in the minors. He was the youngest dude there. He absolutely killed it. It was like him and Roman Anthony were the ones killing that thing. And then right after that little skills competition thing, I think it boosted his confidence because that's when we saw him just start tearing it up in the minors. And then he made it up to AA as an 18-year-old. So like that's why I like Walcott more than DeVries is because he played better in the second half and he did it at a higher level and he's only 1 year older. And I feel like playing AA with high AA as an 18-year-old is a little more impressive than playing A-ball as a 17-year-old, even though they're both super impressive. But I give Walcott the edge between those two guys.
Yeah. Walcott's definitely more toolsy. There's definitely some risk there. Like, does the contact get to a point where he can fully maximize on his massive potential? But like, we're talking about a guy that's like, could be like a Jazz Chisholm type, something like that. But I won't say Ellie. I've heard some people say Ellie. I'm not gonna go there just because Ellie could go 40-80 this year or something stupid. But when it comes to current prospects in the minor leagues, you could make a strong case that just if 100%, everything breaks right, the ceiling, Walcott might have the highest, or he's at least in that discussion with like one or two others, right? But little less, still you still got some ways to go, finishing off that profile, polishing off the hit tool. So we'll see. But yeah, the upside is absolutely massive with him. I mean, that's why I have him top 10 right now. I mean, it's a very warranted ranking. And then Chase the Louder, I mean, the injuries piss me off. It's like I have been such a big Chase the Louder guy, since his days in college, and I ranked them super high in my FYPD rankings that year. And I think I'm the Chase the Louder guy. I'm pretty sure I have him ranked higher than anybody else on the planet at this point. Even if his own parents did fancy prospect rankings, I probably have him ranked higher than they do at this point. But obviously the durability is a massive red flag, right? There's no way to say it's not, but I think he'd be like top 5 for me if these durability concerns weren't there. And in the perfect world, he'd be already graduated because he already would have exceeded the threshold last year. But you just look at the profile, and yeah, the red flag is there with the durability, but skills wise, there's no red flag with the Lauder skills. I mean, he has I almost want to put a 70 grade on his hit tool too. Like I don't like throwing that around because it's a really high praise to say 70 grade hit tool, but it's easy plus. I mean, given contact and approach, I mean, this is a guy that does not strike out much at all. I mean, last year, obviously it was a very small sample size, but he had an 11.6% walk rate, 13.4% strikeout rate. He had a swinging strike rate of just 5.8%, which for a guy that has a lot of power, I mean, you see like slap hitters doing that, not guys with this much power. I mean, his zone contact has been over 90% like every year. His overall contact rate has been like in the mid to upper 80s. Just phenomenal contact and approach profile. And he's plus power, plus speed. I mean, maybe he's not plus speed long term. He probably ticks down. I mean, he's probably more like above average speed right now. But this guy that has shown that he's willing to run. He gets on base at a high clip, which helps. Like, this just could be a guy that's just really good everywhere, in like a 30-20 type of guy with high average, high OBP. I mean, the upside's an early round fantasy guy if he can stay healthy. So, I mean, just because there's no red flags in the profile, the skills wise, that's why I still rank him as highly as I do. Yeah, it's risky. Yeah, I'm definitely the high man, and this could make me look really bad, or I could look really good in a few years if he could finally put this, all these injuries behind him. That's the major X factor here. We'll see. Hopefully he can, because it's a really fun profile. And I think he could be a real stud if he can stay on the field.
Yeah, I agree with you. The comp I threw on him is a lefty Matt Holliday. I think I think he could do he could do those kinds of things. It's just like stay on the field, man. Let's stay healthy.
Matt Holliday can still Matt. You see that video of Matt, Jackson, and Ethan just like out there. Like Matt has a metal bat, just hitting absolute nuke still, and he's probably like, I don't know if he's 50 yet, but if he's not 50, he's close to it. But yeah, he was still hitting some tanks. That guy was so good.
I saw some video of his nephew too yesterday. Like I saw some video of his nephew going around. So like he's got not just the sons, but I guess he's got nephews too with some talent, because I think his brother is the coach for Oklahoma State.
Yep.
So number 8, Matt Shaw is who you have. We already talked about him. I've got Walker Jenkins. You got Walker Jenkins at 5, and like I kind of been back and forth on this. Okay, who's the top Twins guy? Because you've got Rodriguez and Walker Jenkins, and like it's rough for me because they're both going to lean OBP in points. But I think that Rodriguez is going to bring a speed component that Jenkins really, I don't think is going to bring to the table. Even though Walker Jenkins, I think, is definitely like his hit tool is just way better. I think long term he's probably better, but like I just think Emmanuel Rodriguez is kind of like a freak of nature for points leagues, and like I played in a lot of points leagues, so I kind of that's like a points league bias probably ranking there, but they're so close it doesn't really matter. Walker Jenkins is just a ridiculous hitter. Like I mentioned earlier, I went to go see him. I traveled to the west side of Florida to go see him last year. Stayed at my parents' house so I could go see him. 91.7% zone contact rate. And I saw 4 at-bats of Walker Jenkins, and he walked 3 times. So that's Walker Jenkins for you. I guess, like he gets his namesake here by actually walking as much as his name, with the 15.2% walk rate, which is, more walks than Ks last year too. Comp I threw on him is Larry Walker. So I don't know if that's like a word association thing that's just like messing in my mind or what with Walker. Like, I don't really know. But 12-degree launch angle too, 110 max EV last year as a 19-year-old. So there's a ton to like here. And I just kind of worry. I don't know if there's a Twins thing, but like I would love to see him swing more, because when I saw him, it's just like, I saw like nothing, like no swings. It's just like he just hanging out, watching pitches go by him. So it's like, I didn't really learn anything by going to see him. So it kind of sucks from like an eyes perspective. But like obviously the dude has talent.
Oh, absolutely, he does. And Walker Jenkins, he's another one where does the power get kind of a similar question to what we had with Max Clark? Like, does the power get to that, at least 20 home runs? I mean, Jenkins, like the frame is, he looks like a guy that should be in his 8th year of playing in the major leagues, not a guy that is he 20? Yeah, I can't remember if he's already. I think he just turned 20. But yeah, he looks like he doesn't look like a 20-year-old. Let's just say that.
Mm-hmm.
And but the hit tool is so advanced with him, the contact, the approach, well beyond his years there. I'm a little more optimistic with the speed component of his game. And like Clark, I do think the power, gets there. I mean, but if it doesn't this year, if it's kind of a similar, underwhelming a little bit in the power department for him this year, I'll probably drop him down a little bit. I mean, he'll still be very highly ranked, but I'm kind of, my ranking of him now is kind of makes, I think he's gonna get to the power. That's why I have him ranked where I do. But yeah, that's a good debate. The Minnesota debate. It's a really fun one for sure. But yeah, I like Walker Jenkins a lot. I mean, that I think as long as he can stay healthy, he's had some injuries as well. But yeah, this is a really fun all around profile. If that power comes, where it's just gonna be one of those high floor, does everything well, gets on base at a high clip, just impacts the game in so many ways, and be a good value in basically any fantasy format, average OBP points, whatever. You saw Jenkins. I think he could be number one prospect this time next year if that power comes along, but we'll see.
Yeah, Welsh and I got into a little debate on Prospect One last year. We were like, okay, is Walker Jenkins going to really be the number one prospect? Because like for a number one prospect, it's like for fantasy wise, the hit tool is great and everything, but it's like you almost want to jump Max Clark ahead of him just because you're like, okay, we're talking about the number one prospect here. It's
Right.
like Jenkins might have the better hit tool, but it's just like for fantasy, like Clark is more fun. 7, you had Travis Bazzana. I had Samuel Basallo. We already talked about them. 6, you have Sebastian Walcott. And I have Dylan Cruz. Walcott, we already discussed. Dylan Cruz, obviously, made the majors, barely a prospect at this point. But I think that the main thing to watch for Cruz this year, like the batting average, 218 in the majors, doesn't really matter. Like, I'm not really concerned. It is a small sample size. I think he's probably going to be like a 250 hitter this year, if I had to guess. The speed's going to help him hit for more, for a higher average. So I think he's probably going to hit like 250, 260, something like that this year as a rookie. I think the power is going to start coming around this year. I think once he gets comfortable in the majors, like maybe not right off the bat, but I think like as he gets comfortable, like second half, we start seeing the power come around for Cruz. And like I think it's going to develop into 25 homer power anyway, if not 30 for Cruz, because we saw it in college. Like he had a lot of power in college. I think it's going to come. It's just like a matter of him getting more comfortable. And talking about Nick Castellanos, the comp that I threw on Dylan Cruz is actually like Nick Castellanos with speed is what I call him, because he's pretty aggressive at the plate too. So that's what I've got on Cruz. What do you think?
Yeah, no, Cruz, I think, the prospect shine wore off a little bit on Cruz because the numbers weren't, they weren't elite. Like I think he underwhelmed. He wasn't bad at all in the minor leagues, but he didn't tear it up like I think people thought after that, what he did at LSU. But all the metrics are there under the hood. I mean, the guy makes contact at a high clip. He has, he's plus power. He's above average to plus speed. The approach is there too. I mean, there's a reason why he's going, like ADP like 130 or so in redraft formats. I mean, this could be a 20-25 years a rookie. He could win National League Rookie of the Year. He's definitely, one of the two front runners along with Roki Sasaki. Maybe Matt Shaw gets up in there. That top half of that Washington lineup's really fun. Obviously, with all the young talent there, James Wood having his first full year this year as well could be really fun to add in to Abrams and everybody. So I think it's gonna be a really fun lineup, especially in at least the top 5 or 6 in that lineup. He's gonna be hitting right in the middle of that. So I think he's gonna be it's a really good 5 category guy. I think he's at one of the highest floors of any prospect in baseball right now. So yeah, I think this is gonna be a top 50 fantasy guy for years to come, and maybe even a little bit higher than that. Maybe you see him sneak into like the third, fourth round area of drafts. So yeah, Dylan Cruz. I mean, he's absolutely deserving of being as highly ranked as he is right now, and having an ADP where he does right now. I mean, this could be one of the best rookies of the year. So yeah, Dylan Cruz, very good all around player.
Yep. Number 5, you have Walker Jenkins, and I have Emmanuel Rodriguez. Number 4, you have Dylan Cruz, and I have Andrew Painter. We've already talked about all those guys. Number 3, we both have Christian Campbell with the Red Sox. We've been watching this whole debate here now that they brought Bregman in. Is Christian Campbell going to break camp? It kind of seemed destined before. Now there are some questions about is Devers going to move off? Is Bregman going to play third so that Campbell can come in and play second? Or is Campbell going to get stuck because Devers doesn't want to play? And it's like, okay, what happens then? Is Campbell going to come and play in the outfield and kind of replace maybe a guy like Willie or Abreu who just won a gold glove? So it's like, what do they do with this situation here as far as redraft? I think long-term, it doesn't really matter. Bregman could always like back out after 1 year. So long term, it's not really much of a question, but for 2025, it is a question because I think Campbell was good enough to break camp. Like his tools right now are major league ready. F score wise, I've got him 103 contact, 126 discipline, 103 power, 138 speed. So like he's above average across the board, like out of the gate if he makes the majors. 90.8 zone contact with a 2020 profile. Maybe more because he is a big dude. So like he could grow into more. I think he could be even like if he played a full season right now in the majors, he could probably hit 270, 280 and hit 20 and go 2020 as a rookie if he gets that full season. So it's just a matter of like where the playing time comes from for this year. And like, so you're just going to have to take that shot in drafts this year. If you're in a redraft league, you're going to just have to take the gamble that the Red Sox are going to maybe do the right thing and, play their guy. Or like it kind of depends. Like it may not even be in their hands. If Devers is their their number one guy in the org, and if he's going to call a shot and take his position, then like what are you going to do about that? Are you really going to fight him on it? And play a guy who you want to be a long-term third baseman as a DH. So they're in a little bit of a conundrum that they tied themselves into by bringing Bregman in with Christian Campbell. So it's kind of interesting to see the way that they play themselves out of this spring.
Yeah, it's a log jam for sure, but it's a good problem to have. I mean, all these guys are super talented, and obviously, being a Red Sox fan, I talked about this on the local radio, sports radio up here. Talked about this on my own little Red Sox podcast as well, because I think they could go a number of different ways. But I've been drafting Christian Campbell because everything I hear, all the beat writers, all the kind of what the team is hinting at, like they want to get him in this lineup. I have no idea how that looks. Is it at second base with Bregman moving over to third and Rafi accepting a DH role? Is it in left field? Does Story get hurt and that opens up shortstop? I don't know. I don't know what where he's gonna play, how many games he'll play at each position, but he's gonna be, even if it's not opening day, I'd still bet a sizable chunk of change that he's up for at least 500 plate appearances with Boston this year. And like coming in the last year, he had the big. It was almost like last year we had the same questions about him as we do now about like Jenkins and Clark, because they have the really good hit tool base and speed element. But does the power come along? Though he wasn't nearly as highly ranked this time last year because he had just been drafted the year before that. But he answered that. The power definitely ticked up. I mean, obviously it's easy to comp him to like a Mookie Betts, which is unfair, but you can see it, right? A little bit more undersized, but packs a punch at the plate. Phenomenal athlete, versatile athlete. Good feel to hit, can get on base. Everything you want. He checks off every single box with a permanent Sharpie. There's no red flags in the profile. I mean, honestly, I part of me wants to put him at number one overall. I mean, and that's no slight, obviously, Roman Anthony, who I love, and Jason Dominguez. But you can make a case for Campbell number one. Maybe the knock is like the track record isn't as long, but all the skills are there. Maybe he's a guy that winds up with some form of dual eligibility, whether it's second short, second outfield, short outfield. I don't know, but it's gonna be a really fun profile. This could be an early round, annual early round fantasy asset. And yeah, I think he's a hit the ground running. Always hard to know for sure, but I feel better about him succeeding, right away than I do with most prospects. I think this is, given the blend of tools, I think he's has a higher chance of hitting the ground running and succeeding right away. So yeah, he's maybe the guy I'm looking forward to seeing the most this year of anybody in baseball. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. I love him. He's got like that Gunnar Henderson type profile where he's just got he's just got everything that you want. And it's like, okay, those are the type of guys who succeed right from the bat, and they're not going to have struggle. Like, oh, he doesn't have concerns. Like, he doesn't have strikeout concerns. He doesn't have anything really to worry about except for the playing time. So it's like, I love him. You and I 1 and 2 kind of have flip flop. You got Anthony 1 and Dominguez 2, and I've got the Martian 1 and Anthony 2. So I'll start off real quick with Anthony. Just insane exit velocities for someone of his age. 90th percentile EVs were insane. So like there's a ton to like here with Anthony. He's got power, speed. I think that between the two, I just like Dominguez's power profile a little bit better, and especially like for the ballpark that he's gonna be playing in. So that's the main difference for me. I think Anthony probably grows into a better hit tool. And I think that his plate skills are also going to be superior to Jason's, even though they're both awesome. Like they're both great. Dominguez right now, there's a little bit of worry about ground ball rate. I mean, it's based on small sample size of his MLB career of like 56%, but it's small sample size. I'm not really that concerned. But he had a 107.5 90th percentile EV. Dominguez did, and 87.9 zone contact rate. So like all these things are phenomenal. Launch angle, even though he has the ground ball thing, his launch angle in the minors is 11 to 12 degrees. So I think he fixes that ground ball thing. And like his little small sample size in the majors last year, and the year before, I guess probably just throw them both out the window, right? Like he was awesome in 2023 when he debuted, then he got hurt. 2024, only 56 at bats, and he wasn't starting every day. So like when you're not starting consistently, it's hard to kind of get into a groove. So I just throw both those out the window and kind of just be like, okay, maybe you take the average of the two, or like you look at the minor, like just focus in on the minor stuff. Where in 58 games he had 11 bombs and 16 steals last year. So like I give Dominguez the slight edge, like partially too, you've got proximity. Dominguez is going to start the year with the Yankees, and there's like no questions about playing time or anything with him. Whereas like Anthony is probably not going to be up until maybe like midseason or something like that.
Part of me as a Red Sox fan wants, especially with the Stanton kind of like injury, wants the Yankees just to like re-sign Verdugo, just to like people to lose their mind, just like have it just be complete chaos. I would as a Red Sox fan, I would love that. It's not going to happen, but yeah, no, Jason, you could definitely make the case that Jason has the higher upside of the two between him and Anthony. He has the big power, and the one element that when he was in the lower levels, when he was running a lot, I'm like, all right, he's not a burner. It's like how much speed impact does he have long term, and then he's still, I mean, he's still not a burner, but he's a good athlete. He's a good runner. And, the other element, it's not just speed that goes into, stolen bases. You have to show the willingness to run and be efficient. And he's shown like, hey, I'm still going to run a lot. What does it look like in the major leagues? I don't know. I don't think he's going to be 30 plus, but could he be, in the, 20 plus range, start his career? Yeah, I think he absolutely could. He's switch hitter, better from the left side, more power from the left side, which obviously at Yankee Stadium is a good thing. So, I mean, the upside is there for him to go 30 plus home runs, 20 plus steals. The contact skills have kind of fluctuated a bit, but he's always shown, a solid approach to the plate. Never had, any major concerns with swing and miss or anything like that. Just seems to, again, stay healthy. He's still obviously very young. Feels like he's been around forever because obviously he signed back in 2019 when he was just 16 years old. And all those, the Mickey Mantle, Bill Jackson, Mike Trout comps that were put on him as a 16-year-old, which was stupid. But hey, he's now, one of the best prospects in the game, a potential all-star caliber player. So yeah, you can make a case that he has a higher upside. Roman Anthony, I had some slight concerns with him, just seeing him a lot live last year. His swing decisions weren't the greatest, and it wasn't like, chasing outside the zone type of thing. It was more so like, all right, you're not swinging at pitches that you probably should have, and then you got yourself into a deep count, and then maybe you chase the slider out of the zone. So it wasn't like he had like a huge K or anything like that. But I'm like, all right, you're limiting yourself a little bit. But then I, seeing him progress throughout the year, his at bats in like August before he get the bump to AAA looked a lot better than his at bats in like April and May. So he kind of answered those concerns. He was starting to do damage on pitches that he could do damage on. And he's a good athlete, not a burner, but he'll steal some bags. He's got the power. He's got the contact, the approach. It's all there. And I think he's going to be, another, potential top 3 round overall fantasy guy. So it's really fun that we have, all these, for the most part, all of our top guys. They're going to be impacting, even redraft leagues this year. Probably not going to get, much of like a, Walcott or Jenkins or Basayo, but we're going to see, Anthony Dominguez, Campbell, Painter, Rodriguez at some point, Cruz. It's really fun that a lot of these top guys are so close to being ready or already have debuted. So yeah, it's fun too, because there's not one clear cut guy that's number 1 right now. You can make a case for like 5 guys right now being number 1, and I won't argue with it. It's all a matter of how you rank, what your preference is in a prospect. There's not like one clear cut guy where, oh, it's Langford, or oh, it's I mean, if you have Sasaki in there, if you count him, he's probably number 1. But oh, it's Holiday, oh, it's this guy. Like, it's pretty wide open right now, which is a pretty fun and makes it a really fun debate right now.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's kind of underrated. Like people will talk smack and say, this top 10 isn't as good as before, but I actually think it's pretty strong. Like there's a lot to like here, like now and for the future. And it's gonna be fun too when like you said, a lot of these guys clear the deck. And it'll be interesting to see how the new rankings play out. So we'll probably see that in a couple of months when everyone starts doing their next set of rankings, and we're gonna see maybe there will be a lot of volatility, I think, between the new rankings when some of these guys clear out. But we'll see. It's going to be fun. Thanks for hopping on, Eric. I really appreciate it. And wanted to check in to see if there's anything that you want to pump. Are you going to come to Florida this year for spring? Or if you're not coming, is there anything you want me to look at for you? I'll check it out for you.
I might be coming to Florida. I'm trying to work it out right now. I might be taking a week off from the day job, like middle of March. So I might be trying to make it down for the breakout series, but it's kind of 50-50 right now. But yeah, I love going down there, getting down to. I've been down to spring training several times. It's always fun, and definitely me being a Maine guy where I'll go out my kitchen door and it's just snow everywhere, and we're getting more this weekend. So it'd be nice to get a little break from all this crap and come down to the nice weather down there in Florida. But yeah, no, thanks for having me on. A lot of fun, a lot of exciting prospects right now in this top 25. And yeah, I've been kind of going through my positional. Already did the positional prospect dynasty rankings. I'm doing that both on my Patreon, on Rotoball. Got a lot of stuff going on there. Got my some upcoming rankings updates in the next few weeks, and getting some little bit of redraft content in there as well. And yeah, it's my favorite time of year. It's like Christmas for us, all this preseason content, especially with on the prospect dynasty side. So yeah, a lot of fun stuff. But appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, for sure. Anytime. And when you come to Florida, come visit.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's make it happen.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. Peace out. See you next time.